Oh, it won't let me change the name.
Okay, I'll do it.
I don't know why it doesn't let me.
I'll do it. Okay,
Okay.
let's see what we got here. Okay, welcome to week 3 of the Undoctor Reset. And we're excited, very excited to have you here. Very excited to have you here, whether you're here in person. There's a very small crowd here this morning, but it's perfect. It's always the right person who shows up. And Vanessa is here with us. I'm going to change her name so y'all can see that. And we're going to move ahead today. We're going to do a little bit of a review. What have we done in the first couple weeks? It's been a couple weeks since week 2. I took last week off. So we're ready to kind of do a little bit review and then launch into whatever the third week, which is really the first week of the second module. There's 4 modules and there's 2 weeks included in each module. So we're in the first lesson of the second module, which is the third week. And if you can follow that, that's great. That's what's here. My name is Dr. Fred. I am the Undoctor. I'm affectionately called the Undoctor because what I do these days, after 46 years in the field, is use unconventional techniques and unconditional love to really help people undoctor themselves. And what I mean by that is come up with another reason, another way of being besides their diagnosis, and also like unmedicate themselves, because it really does appear to me that medications don't do what they're marketed to do, and frequently and reliably either don't help or make things worse. I mean, there's an occasional person who really swears by their medicine, and I am fully down with that. That's great. If that's where you're at in life, if you've reached a point where you have found something that really works for you, by all means, please keep doing that. Don't, this discussion's not for you. But the undoctor discussion is about undiagnosing, unmedicating, and then ultimately undoctrinating. So in other words, really working myself and other doctors out of a job. Like, isn't that exciting that you could go to a doctor and actually get healed and then never have to go back to a doctor again? And that can happen even in psychiatry. And it's not what we've been taught. It's not what we've been programmed. So today we're going to go over lesson 3 along those lines of a progress of some things that I have put in place or compiled over time that can be very helpful in the undoctor approach, in the undoctor movement, in the undoctor technology. Again, unconventional, unconditional, undiagnose, unmedicate, undoctrinate, and that's the undoctor. So off we go. We'll see what this looks like. Oh, Vanessa, why don't you introduce yourself? Who are you? What are you doing here? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. I came here to search for therapy and some inner healing work. I've been on a journey for my whole life to understand myself and be at peace and more gentle with who I am. And I'm in the program. I've been clean for 7 years. I am just learning to live with this idea that there's nothing wrong with me and there never was, because I was diagnosed with two different forms of ADHD and ADD. I have all subtypes, and haven't been on medication, have managed, but yeah, this always feeling something was wrong with me, that idea has really like transformed my life. And I'm just doing this workshop and searching for some one-on-one therapy, which I started, and I'm going to continue. Yeah. So it's
Perfect.
just started my healing journey.
Yep, exactly. Today's a good day to start that, by the way. Good work. And so it's great to have you here. Thanks for being here. And let's take a look at what we have up here now. So, Module 2 is essentially associated with reclaiming and rebuilding. We build clarity and resources, and we examine limiting and long standing beliefs, and then building strong daily practices to counteract the default of feeling miserable or skeptical or resigned or hopeless or helpless. All these very uncomfortable, low vibration experiences that frequently become the default. At each lesson, we say something called the sovereignty statement. This is something that we designed so that we understand that we are, in fact, the choreographer, the author, the creator, the sovereign owner of our life. We're the agency. We're the ones who create the life that we have. And no one else is ever responsible for anything we do or say, even though you think that because that person did or said that, you had to do X or Y. Actually, you didn't have to do X or Y. You chose to do X or Y. And we like to underline that you are a sovereign being. So, Vanessa, if you can help us out by reading this out loud, that'd be really great.
Yes. Let me see. Okay. I am a sovereign being. I am fully responsible for my life, my choices, and my healing. I do not assign blame to this program, its creator, any participant for what I experience here or in life. I walk this path as a free, accountable human.
Exactly. And I, too, am a sovereign being. I am fully responsible for my life, my choices, and my healing. I do not assign blame to this program, to its creator, although I am its creator, so there's some blame for me. I'm responsible for my life, or any other participant for what I experience here or in life. I walk this path as a free and accountable human. Vanessa, we've done this 3 times now. What happens to you when you read this sovereign statement? Do you feel something?
Yeah, I feel like a sense of taking ownership, and something that kind of I already knew, but making a statement around it feels like powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like a sense of power and like lightness after I
Beautiful.
read it.
Exactly. And that's what it's meant to do. And you know what? I didn't give you anything. I just reminded you of something that's been so the whole time.
Yeah,
You see,
that's
this was so even before you thought it was so. You just are a sovereign being. You get to make the choices in your life of how things go, including this, like, we can be so creative that we can convince ourselves that we're not sovereign, but we're so sovereign that we actually have the power to convince ourselves that we're not. So that's another way to look at that. All right, we talked a little bit in week 1 about something, about our freedom folder and the school community. So what we have here is a couple places where there's a QR code. And in our freedom folders, which are really meant for anyone who's participating in this course, we have something called the Moss Method Tracker, which is a list of the 20 things associated with the Moss Method, which we will get into today. We also have the Reset Acronym Wall poster for quick reference, and we also will get into that today. And then how to taper and the Taperness Ready worksheet to assess your status and if, in fact, this is something you want to consider doing for yourself, by yourself. And by the way, yes, I can lead and give some directives. I am not ever responsible for anything you do or don't do with respect to your medications, however. Not in any way. I can hold out a promise that you might be better without medicine, or I can hold out a promise that you need medicine. Whatever I say, it's not in any way me being responsible for your particular outcome. You get to choose what you get to choose based on your experiences in life. The Undoctor identity ritual to support personal growth. We start looking at what does that really mean? Well, we've talked briefly about the Undoctor and how does one become an Undoctor? My experience is that people who have expressed interest in this course, there's at least as many of them who want to become an Undoctor inside of their clinical work as those who want to be undoctored. So I'm helping people actually reach the state where they can bring this level of freedom and peace and this level of openness and honesty and empowerment to people through the practices that we are exploring in this course and beyond. The school community. This is the reset circle. This is where I have my community. There's about 300 people living in there or hanging out in there. We connect with each other on the same journey. These are people who have similar ideas, similar thoughts, similar ways of thinking. And there I invite you to ask questions, share your wins with others. And there inside of the reset circle, you can go there for ongoing support. If you have questions or if you have concerns or you have something you just want to post, entertainment or education, that's what school allows for. And we also have particularly participate in weekly live calls and watch replays of these courses, for which, by the way, we do have a replay from week 1 and week 2. So if you're just coming on today, you can review those two, the two previous episodes that we've had, and we will have a replay for this one as soon as this class is over as well. Now we talk about the reset. And what is reset? Well, it's a funny acronym, basically. I put it together, and it's release, examine, simplify, embody, and transform. Let's talk a little bit about what each of those are. Is in release, we let go of our labels. We free ourselves from the emotional and identity constraints of false diagnoses and external labels. Often they are limiting beliefs to reclaim our basic, authentic, real, royal self. And then we examine. We explore the patterns. We identify and reflect on how these beliefs, these behaviors, and inherited narratives have influenced our thoughts and actions and continue to do so. Then we simplify. After releasing and examining, we simplify. We remove the clutter. We actually eliminate clutter. Maybe like one of my mentors says, we eliminate, delegate, or automate our clutter. We remove distractions and unhelpful habits that have been here the whole time to create a possible emotional space for healing and clarity, because you can't create something where something is already sitting. We need to have an open space so that we can create something new. Then we embody. We show up authentically, express our reclaimed truth with confidence through words, actions, and presence in our daily life, and we actually become that truth. And then we transform. On the back end of releasing, examining, simplifying, and embodying, you'll notice transformation. We author our future from that space, having reached the destination or having accomplished the idea that we could actually take on our life with this particular acronym. We can then take full responsibility and ownership of our own healing journey, as Vanessa's already alluded to, by consciously shaping our life with sovereignty and intention. Here's what we'll be doing, or what I'm hoping to be doing today in week 3. We'll be examining the beliefs, good and bad, limiting and empowering. We're exploring cultural narratives and myths that may have found their way into our programming. We'll distinguish ideas from labels, identity from labels, like who are you and who are you really, and who have you been called and who do you call yourself. And we'll practice narrative distancing exercises. I'm not sure that we're actually going to do that today. We'll see how this works. But we're going to talk a little bit about what happens when we give some distance between our narrative and who we really are. And then next week is the second module, or the second lesson in module 2. We'll take a look at life inventory, as you already have in course inside of the program. And we will audit diagnoses and the impact on life areas. And we'll work to build and maintain a support network and continue to infiltrate the Moss method into our daily practice, which we'll get to that here momentarily. So, clarity and resources. What are we doing here? We're going to emphasize the understanding and harnessing inner and external support systems. We're going to focus on examining personal beliefs, the things that have already made it into you as if you believe them to be true. Like, the difference between truth and belief is not very large. When you believe something, it's meant to be seen as truth. And then when we get to unbelieve those, we get to challenge the myths and then reshape the identity we get to become in. We assess the real costs of mental health labels on life domains like family, work, and health. Like, when we look at this, I'm going to invite you to contemplate what the impact was or has been on your family and your circles. We build strong daily practices that promote freedom and integrity by using the Moss method. Moss method has 20 different components in it, and we'll see those later today again. And we cultivate supportive relationships. That's what the school program is for. The reset circle. And we're cultivating supportive relationships that provide connection, boundaries, and encouragement. Any questions to this point, Vanessa?
Nope, none. I'm good.
All right. Another thing we do at week 3 is we focus on examining the beliefs that shape our understanding of mental health. And these include exploring cultural narratives that often frame mental illness through limiting myths about permanence as if they're here to stay, biology as if it's a chemical imbalance, and dependency, which can happen on being dependent on your therapist or being dependent on drugs or even being dependent on your diagnosis.
Mm.
Participants are encouraged to critically question these narratives, which will, again, I'm already asking us to do. As you read this, feel free to feel the contemplation to question the narratives that you're already sitting with about yourself. And recognizing how your own labels and your own diagnoses or non-diagnoses can influence your identity and behavior. We're going to place some amplified energy on developing critical thinking as a tool for healing and enabling individuals to distinguish between the societal definitions, like who you've been called from out there, and your own personal truth, who you know yourself to be at your core. And through reflection and exercise, this week invites reclaiming the sovereignty over one's story, like fostering awareness and expression beyond the confines of whatever diagnosis you've agreed to take on for yourself. You know, ultimately, it does take you to agree. Just because the doctor tells you you have something doesn't mean that you have it. It just means that they have said that you have something. And until you believe it, you actually don't have it. So that's really important to get. You only get the diagnosis you have once you agree to take it on. Otherwise, people can say whatever they want about you. They could call you an anteater, and that wouldn't mean that you're an anteater. That would mean that you have a choice to take on their thought that you're an anteater. So we've talked a little bit about the Moss method, and these are a couple of the big frames for which the Moss method fits in. There's essentially a couple different areas, and it got split up this way. So mindfulness and movement practices are part of the Moss method. A daily intention to take on some or as close to many, or even, I don't know anybody who does them all. There are 20 of them. As you can in your day, knowing that each and every one that you add to your day will create a space, will create the possibility of you being able to move a little freer in this world and think and be a little bit different, maybe more aligned with your core values and core self. So in the world of mindfulness and movement practices, we talk about gratitude. That's initially what I do. I wake up in the morning, put my hand on the heart, even before I'm out of bed, and I say 10 things, and I whisper them out loud, even though Alexandra's lying next to me, and I put her number 1, of course. I invite you to actually pick your partner and put them number 1 too, just to avoid early morning fights. And then the second thing I put in my second one is pretty reliably my cats. And sometimes my cats are number 2 as numbered like that. Or sometimes because I have 3 cats and I don't, I want to like hit my check mark, I might go with all 3 of them, like 2, 3, and 4. Anyways, you could do this any way you want, and coming up with 10 is not very difficult. I shortly after go out into the morning sky, and I just absorb and feel what's going on out there, whether it's dark or light, whether it's cold or warm, whether there's drones out there or stars out there or a full moon or a half moon, or if there's a sun even. I connect with the sky or nature to realize that life isn't going on inside of my noggin, and also isn't going on simply in the side of these 4 walls. So by acknowledging and being with the infinite nature of nature, I get a new perspective, a grounded perspective into what's possible and the borderlessness of what's really out there. Practicing guided meditations like breath or offering loving kindness to calm the mind and nurture self-compassion is another possibility. I provide people with all sorts of meditative techniques that we can talk about. And then breathing is another one where there's, box breathing, and there's 4-6-8 breathing, and there's Wim Hof breathing, and all the breathing exercises can be very, very powerful in getting us squared away for the day. Engaging in some sort of physical activity, the ones that I like to use are the non-combative martial arts like Tai Chi or Qigong, as well as yoga, which are more than just posing and exercises. These things are, time tested and proven to bring about a holistic growth and a holistic freedom that otherwise doesn't get found doing simple movements. We incorporate deep breathing exercises as I had spoken of before as well. And then we talk about nourishment. What are you going to put into your body? And into your body, by the way, I really mean through your ears, through your eyes, through your mouth, through who you're hanging out with, and what about your feelings and your taste? Organic whole foods are what I lean on. The word organic is still a little bit shaky out here in our culture. Things get called organic that maybe might not be so organic. But we can, so we have the best that we have. And so organic whole foods and hydrating ourselves by drinking half our body weight in ounces is one way to make sure that we get the natural nutritive flow. What do I mean by that? If I weigh 200, I'm talking about 100 ounces of water. If you weigh 120, I'm talking about 60 ounces of water per day. Celery juice is known to be a massive medicine, a massive healer in so many levels, all the way down to the cellular level. I myself have 16 ounces of fresh juiced celery every single morning. And then I have herbal tea. Normally I lean on oolong, but the herbal tea is another one that can detoxify and create that flow. When we're flowing, we're more like nature. We're more like the river, and we don't get stuck as easy. And isn't that true with rivers and water as well? Drinking from a still pond is how you get sick, but drinking from a river is typically totally healthy. We avoid processed white powders like refined sugars and flours, and we maintain stable energy and health. And I say avoid white powders. That includes other white powders as well, like methamphetamine or cocaine. I don't suggest that we use those in this process either. Then, if we're going to engage creatively, I invite us to do it through what I call the Creative Eight, which is a book that I authored many years ago. And art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, and gardening are those Creative Eight. Ultimately, we reach to those to help us with expressing ourselves in a different form. And in that process, I noticed that our discomfort often disappears or diminishes significantly. And then we get to choose when we're done with whatever activity, whatever visual or performing arts we just did, whether or not to go back to who we were before we started. So yes, we have a choice whether to go back to feeling miserable at that point. It isn't like misery grabs us and brings us back down. Even though it might feel that way, we have a choice at that point whether to let misery bring us back down or whether to choose to go back into misery for whatever perverse comfort that offers us human beings, because it does offer us some comfort in its familiarity. We foster authentic conversations to build meaningful connections and emotional support. Very important to share ourselves. And that's with words or with listening or with curiosity or maybe even exploration through the Creative Eight, other forms of communication. It's very, very important to connect with other human beings. Perhaps it is said, or perhaps I say, as someone involved in Welcome to Humanity, which is the program I developed about 7 years ago, is that, healing, at the center of all healing is a human connection. Back to the Moss method. And we shift from automatic medication to, we apply this to the to pills that we're taking. So as part of the Moss method here is a conscious rituals. And we went over this in week 2. When we're doing and thinking about taking medicine or untaking or redesigning or reforming our medication regimen, there's some things that I like to do that I think they're very helpful or suggest to others to do that are very helpful to get us to understand what we're doing. So most of the time we just take our medicine automatically. I don't know, I take a pill in the morning or something like that. And I just take it whenever I take it on my way to work or after breakfast or when I wake up. And it's kind of willy-nilly. I invite us to make it into a deliberate mindful act at the same time every single day. And we use the 30-second pre-dose pause to create space for reflection and presence. What's that? Well, you're holding your medicine about 30 seconds before that time. So let's say you're taking your medicines at 9 a.m. every day. At 8:59 and 30 seconds, we begin to hold our medicines and we just look at them and figure out why are we taking them in the first place? What's the relationship we have with these things? What are we hoping for? Are we doing it because we have to? Are we doing it because it helps? Are we doing it because we want to? Are we doing it because we're hoping? We just have those kind of questions and let those sit. And after 30 seconds, we go ahead and eat the medicine. We anchor this ritual in personal intention and awareness, fostering empowerment, as we've already talked about a few times today. And this practice turns routine into a moment of agency and choice, because at that moment, when you stop, when you pause and you look at what the purpose is and then choose to eat the medicine afterwards, you are making a choice of sheer agency, sheer sovereignty, sheer authorship of your personal choreography. Consistent conscious rituals enhance your connection to your healing journey and self-sovereignty. You may have noticed this, right, Vanessa? Like, when you're doing things because you know that it's coming from you, it's a different life than being dragged through like a leaf in a river. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so like the it feels like when I am flowing, I feel like I don't really necessarily have to it feels indecisive, my life. Like that's the way I would describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Out of sorts. Like I feel like I constantly need to search for um like reassurance or ask my friends, and I can't find the answer within myself, and if I do I feel so unsure of it that I don't trust my own decisions because um I don't really feel connected in my life.
Uh-huh. And so what do you notice when you apply these things, or when you start taking on that point of pausing, or that point of, acting on intention?
Yeah, I just noticed that like I as a fast-paced thinker, I just move on to the next thing and I don't have a pause to actually give myself space to come into the situation, because then I'm just reacting from subconscious and just doing, versus if I pause I can actually give myself a window of time to see it versus just reacting.
Exactly.
And I just feel more peaceful. It feels like I have a breath, like I'm not breathing, and then a pause is like a breath to just
Exactly.
collect myself, and I can just see things so differently if I pause. It's a completely shift in perspective, and when I respond from after a pause, I feel intentional. And when
Amazing.
I don't, I feel very angry and lots of layers to actually how I'm truly feeling. Like I could be feeling sadness or vulnerability, but it's coming out as anger and like not caring.
Yeah.
So there's many layers. So it feels like very complex and overwhelming. But when I just pause, things feel simple and I get, yeah, that peace.
Yeah, a remarkable, remarkable testament to the power of pausing. Right? Like, it's one of the, if not the most powerful thing we can do in life, is just stop for just a second. Just stop. Just pause. Take a look. Get what's so. Then move when you're ready. It's really amazing, and you get. I don't think I could have said it any better than Vanessa did. So thank you for sharing that. Here's the Moss method in its glory, and there are I believe 10 on in the next two slides, 10, and we'll go over these briefly. Gratitude, as we talked about, is saying the 10 things. Morning sky, we also talked about. Meditation, we also talked about. And yoga and Tai Chi, we also talked about. So these four, and we talked about breathing. These five are my morning activities that I generally don't skip any day. After that comes cold showers. Now, this may make you cringe. I mean, that's the natural nature of cold showers. Some people think it's just silly or wrong, or they can't do it or wouldn't do it and can't see how they would want to wake up and get a cold shower. I know for me, it's been about 3.5 years that I haven't missed a cold shower ever for 3.5 years. And except one time. One time I had a shower at a hotel that didn't get cold. I was like, what is that? I, I wanted to call the proprietor and say, what's up? No cold shower, but that's such an odd request. But I had a hotel shower that didn't get cold. So I just did my very best to make it as cool as it could possibly be. And it wasn't quite cold. But nevertheless, I just throw that in. Because what happens in a cold shower is I get to reactivate. I get to revitalize. I get to re-own myself. And frankly, I get to make an overt decision to make the water go cold. So I walk in while it's still warm. I do a little bit of my business and cleaning and stuff like that. And then I look at that knob and I turn it down all the way and I get underneath it. It takes about 5 seconds. But that move to turn it on all the way is like hitting a gear shift. It was like, all right, this isn't going to be so pleasant right away, but my day needs to start and this is what I'm doing. And for me, it is really kind of a cosmic experience to get myself cold. I stay in there for about 8 rounds, so I turn around maybe 8 times, and it takes about 3 minutes. But if you're doing it for the first time, try it for just a few seconds. And what I won't guarantee, is that you'll appreciate it for even a few seconds. And the next day, you may want to do a few extra seconds. And who knows, it could grow on you as well. Very revitalizing, very normalizing, and reactivating. Organic foods, as we talked about, is the best thing to fill your body with. If you're going to eat anything, you should probably eat stuff that was been food long before it was any kind of chemical. And with water, 1/2 body weight in ounces. I don't know where they came up with that number. It's a lot of water. I do weigh about 220, and that means 110 ounces. And, that's 4.5 24 ounce jugs every day. That's quite a lot. And it means I have to go to the restroom a lot. But I do notice that on those days when I hydrate, I definitely am in flow at a different level than when I somehow choose not to keep the not to keep the H2O flowing. A couple things that are not quite water that I think are drinkable and very helpful are the celery juice, which we touched on, and then herbal teas. I like oolong, I like Chinese teas, but you don't have to go to China. There's a lot of great teas right out here with us. But free and loose tea, you can get, man, there are, I don't know, maybe thousands of different types of teas, and some of them have different medicinal qualities. And some of them bring calm, and some of them bring peace, and some of them bring, gut clearing, and some of them bring sleepiness, and some of them bring you awake. So there's and most of them, each and every one of them is actually quite tasty if you allow for it. No white powders, as we talked about before. That's the legal and illegal white powders are probably not doing you all that good. Now, the second half, the second 10 of the 20 includes creativity. That's the creative 8, art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, gardening, and then authentic conversations. You're not really getting that far if you're not sharing yourself with others. So as uncomfortable as that might be, I invite you to have authentic conversations where you're not only speaking your truth, but you're listening for another. It's amazing. It's super amazing. After all, the only reason we usually get together online anyways is to create something like this, at least in our perspective. So we're always looking for authentic conversations, although it doesn't always feel easy to incorporate them. Pampering. What do they mean by that? Treating yourself like the royal king or queen that you really are. Incorporating self-care rituals such as, maybe massage or pedicures or manicures or, saunas. Like actually taking care of yourself, maybe even with shopping or with foot rubs, like actually giving yourself that kind of respect that you would if you were the VIP that you were entertaining or hosting in your life, because after all, that is who you are. Now, sleep hygiene, what's that? Well, sleep hygiene comes in many flavors. These days, most of us are on a screen until way too late at night. One way or another, we're watching our phone, or we're looking at a TV, or we're looking at a computer. There's a flat screen in front of us, and we are staring this thing down, and we think that we're in life. What's interesting about that is one of the nature's number one enemy to sleep is light. And even as you're watching this right now, you're not seeing me, and you're not seeing Vanessa, and you're not even seeing a slide. What you're seeing is a light that's a facsimile of all those things, several lights, millions of really pixelated lamps that are just jamming away on your eyes. And because of that, and because light is such a problem for sleep, because how do we know? If you want to wake somebody up and they're sleeping, one thing we'll do is turn on the light, because light does not play nicely with sleep. So we invite you to turn off those the light emitting devices an hour or two before you go to sleep, and then turn down the music and turn down the lighting in the home, and maybe take a warm bath, and maybe, actually put on candles, or do fine hand-eye coordination things that will loosen you down, things that'll set you up in order to sleep. As you know, you spend a lot of time going from when you sleep and then you wake up, and then before you get out there into the real world, you probably have an hour at least, and some of you might have more or maybe a little less, that you have to prepare for yourself. You have to make the transition from sleep to wake. What would happen if we did that same kind of respect and going in the other direction? all of a sudden we would be prepared for sleep instead of thinking that we deserve sleep, that the minute we bang our head on our pillow after a hard day, we should have just be zonked out. And although we can be exhausted enough for that to happen, that is not the premium way to create sleep in our life.
Mm.
Reading books. I invite you to actually read books, and books for self-improvement or books to stimulate your mind is what I'm asking. And probably, as you can guess, not necessarily through Kindle and not necessarily through electronic books. Although if that's the only way you do it, I can understand. But there are real books out there. They used to have these things called books, and these books had actual paper and they were actual hard copy. You could carry them around with you and turn to a certain page and start again when you started up again. So I invite you to read real books. It can be very soothing. And this is true with journaling as well. Writing, when I say writing, you don't see me saying typing. So what I mean by journaling is actually writing with a pen and a paper or a pencil and a paper, or what your thoughts or feelings. You can write poetry, you can write doodles, you can do whatever you want. But in that world of journaling, you get to see what's actually soaking off of you. What about pets? Well, I told you I got these 3 cats. These 3 cats are the compassion and unconditional love of my life. All three of them are just amazing. They teach me how to live all day long. They've been in my center of my world a couple times today, and they're amazing. My cats' names, by the way, are Valentino, Desposito, and Winston, and they're just amazing creatures. So I really appreciate that, and I just think that everyone should understand that cats live a different life. Cats are not worried about politics. Cats aren't concerned about what might happen tomorrow. What a cat's interested in doing is playing, finding comfort, sleeping, a little bit of eating, and then relieving themselves in the litter box. And I suppose you got to set them up for the things that they can't do themselves. You got to give them the food. You got to do something with the litter box. But other than that, they're really self-sufficient, and they're just freaking beautiful. The next one is spirituality. These last 2 are really important. They're a higher level. Spirituality meaning like exploring who you are spiritually. Like, what is your connection to the cosmic, to the divine, to the infinite? Who are you? What have you learned that those things provide for you? Who is that thing that is to a let's see. What did they say in the program? Something greater than yourself. To a
Oh, oh, oh my God, oh my gosh, to a power greater than yourself.
power greater than yourself. Yeah,
There.
exactly. So that's the spirituality. Yeah, good job from both of us there. Thank you. And then, so it's a power greater than ourselves is what spirituality is really after. And then service work. What I say in my book, The Creative 8, is that after all 8 of those things, if somehow you're still feeling a little chunky, a little bit disempowered, when you do service for service sake, help anybody do anything, there's a new level of resurgence, a new level of renaissance that takes place at that moment. And it can only be experienced when you do it in that way. I can talk about it till the cows come home and you won't understand. But when you actually help anybody do anything, there is something that happens very deeply internally that allows you to, again, get grasp of maybe even why and how you're alive. Now, all the things I said that we're going to do today, I invite you to continue contemplating them as we continue to look at the Moss Method. So we have a gratitude practice. We have the gentle movements like yoga and Tai Chi. We have the mindful breathing like Wim Hof or the box breathing, or incorporating that with a mudra or with our meditation, like actually taking time to take advantage of looking at and being with our breath. It's the one thing that separates us from me to the outside world, or from life to death, or from what I take in to what I leave out. So breathing is right at the center of our life, and paying attention to the whole act of breathing can be very, very transformative. Journaling, we already talked about. Pen and paper like this. We write daily reflections. You don't have to have much of a prompt. You can, the artist way, it suggests that you just write for three pages every single day, whatever comes to your mind. I'm not sure that that's entirely required. It is required if you're going to do the artist way, and that's a fantastic book. But what we're really looking at here is just you journaling what's ever there on your mind that can come out through your hands onto the paper. Any questions at all, Vanessa?
Um, no, no.
All right. All right, we're going to continue to look at the Moss method. The Moss method is the lens that we're using today to take on some of those things we talked about earlier. Journaling is a healing tool. We use journaling to separate personal identity from our diagnosis. You can see how that would be natural. We practice narrative distancing to observe our thoughts without attachment. What do I mean by that? Well,
Hmm.
when we sit down or when we write, we notice that we have feelings, we have thoughts, we have sensations, but we don't have to become those. And that's the distance that we're talking about. We can have those things, we can even house those things, we can even have it be that those things can create a different flair of how we see the world, but we definitely do not have to become those things. And that's the magic of both journaling and meditation and gratitude. We write reflections using the told, believed, and now 3-column format. That's one thing that we can do. I don't. It's not a requirement, but it's like a past. It's a past, present, future way to go. Like, what have we been told? What have we believed as a process? What do we now believe? And what direction are we going? And in this process of journaling, we get shifts of perception that we may notice and emotional responses over time that we may notice that become very obvious and transparent upon writing them down. We're also noticing another form of communication, the spoken communication. We notice that language is used in self talk and internal narrative. I'm not good enough, I'm less than, there's something wrong with me, I'm different. Those kind of things can be in our way, or I'm better than, I know more, I don't like that person. Those kind of things as well are thoughts that show up in our language. We identify limiting or myth-based beliefs embedded in our words. So we may hear ourselves say something and think, "Ooh, I'm not that kind of guy. I don't really want to think that." And we're allowed to change our words at that point and, in fact, get a different perspective amazingly. So it wasn't like it was true. It was like once we said it, it became true. And so we have an opportunity to change the way that we say things so that you get a
Hmm.
life that's a little bit different. Yeah?
Yes. No, I really liked what you just said. Like once you say it, it becomes true because like yeah, the power of words, sometimes I'm not thoughtful of that and thinking like how they can actually create that same reality over and over and over, and you just have to look at like, is that really what I want to be telling myself, or is that really
Exactly.
what I want to be projecting out in the world? Because maybe I don't believe it, maybe I'm joking about it, but if you joke about something long enough and keep continuing it, it's not a joke anymore. And because humor, I was thinking about this with humor, because sometimes I joke about stuff and use humor as like a something to break up, but I notice that if I use humor and over again, it's like you're almost creating that reality. Like I've felt that happen just with my life,
Yeah,
and yeah, just the power of speaking and what it's actually saying.
exactly. Well said. Beautiful. And indeed, your body, what I've been told, what I've learned is that your mind and body and spirit, they're not really able to discern that it was just a joke. So when you think you're joking because somebody's going to giggle or laugh and thereby, maybe it's not rooted as deeply in truth. When you say that stuff, your body, at least for a moment, is just as surprised as anybody on the outside and can't tell the difference between whether or not you're telling the truth or making something up to be funny. We develop discernment to challenge it, to challenge and reframe negative labels by how we speak. So just like you just did, and each and every conversation that you've had today, each and every contribution that you've had, we could say has altered the course of your life. Had you not said the things, just a few things that you've said in this class already, your life would be going in a different direction than it's going now. Do you see that that's really true? You actually paved some roads for yourself in your contribution already a few times today.
Yeah, definitely. It's so funny that you say that. Yeah, because I could literally say something and then my mind will go in that direction and then that will be the way I go.
Exactly. That's just the way it
It's
works.
it's just the way it is. Yeah, it's simple, but it's so complex. And it's like, I didn't know these things, but they feel very familiar. Like it's so funny what these truths do to you and how they feel when they
Exactly.
land in your mind. Like it's familiar, but it's also like new and it's
Yep.
funny.
Yep. It is funny. Yep. We are funny human beings. Welcome to humanity. We use language observation as a step toward reclaiming our sovereignty. It's another place, right? If we're going to observe, what are we really doing? We're going to have to pause. And when we pause, we have an opportunity to go in whatever direction we want to go in from there. Like when you pause, you get a choice of what is, you're going to make a left turn, you're going to make a right turn, you're going to go straight, you're going to go down a new road, an old road, what are you going to do? And we have that opportunity when we pause and look at the language that we've been using up until now. We're always in such a hurry. We really feel that when the last sentence is over or when that person is done talking, that it's like the stopwatch has started. Like we got to stop. We got to start talking right away, rather than taking what might be 1 second or even less to pause and observe, and then say something that's more aligned with your personal soul. All right, Vanessa, it looks like we have reached the end of today's slides for the most part. We have next week's slide, and this is like we'll take a preview look at this of some of the myths that are coming around in the second lesson of the second module.
Mm.
So we have this idea that mental illness is permanent, right? That's what we've been taught. And we've been also taught that chemical imbalance is the cause of mental illness. And we've also been taught that dependency on medication is inevitable, that you're going to need it and you're going to need it maybe for the rest of your life. And we've been taught about critical thinking and sovereignty. Questioning these myths empower individuals to reclaim their story, choose their healing path, and anchor recovery in personal truth and sovereignty. So questioning the three myths, we get an opportunity to actually create critical thinking and sovereignty from that space of pause and contemplation. Yeah?
No, yeah, I love that. And I like what you said about, pausing that it helps you respond more authentically because a lot of the times as a person being Vanessa, I feel the need to describe and over explain myself. And then I feel like I get lost in the point and then I just don't even say what I was trying to say and then I leave the conversation like so frustrated with myself versus that if I were to just but I feel anxiety when I don't feel the space because I feel like there's this thought that they're going to feel disappointed if I don't respond right away or they're going to feel like I'm not taking space and time and attention to them because my attention can be very like wiry, so I just have this projection that they're going to assume that my attention is somewhere else if I'm not paying attention to them, and I'm telling myself that I'm doing that by responding really quickly but I'm actually not. Because and so it's so funny, I'm like seeing myself doing this and it actually helping me and pausing and actually responding from a place where I can hear them and I can process it and I can give them back something authentic. It's not about validating them. It's about truly hearing them in that moment and responding and connecting with them. Like I don't need to do anything for anybody, And it's funny that I'm like projecting that onto them because it's how I feel about myself.
Yeah. Yeah, we come up with funny thoughts. We're wounded and we've been wounded since either early in our life or maybe even in previous lives. And we've come up with ways to avoid pain or to do what we're told or to seek out pleasure. And they can create some distortions in how we see life. And it can be entirely backwards from what you thought. Like in your case, here you are responding as quickly as possible to show them that you're listening when you realize that if you really want to show them you're listening, maybe it's time to pause after they speak and actually contemplate what's there, and that might even be a greater sense of you being right there with them.
Yeah, and it's funny I never stopped to think about these things or process it and what it's really saying to another person when you're because you're right. The most important thing is human connection.
Yeah.
And if I'm not getting that, then I'm trying to find it instead of just being present with it.
Yeah.
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 Okay, yeah. No, I really liked that today. I feel like it the class is molding together and it's all like making sense. Like in my life, I'm like applying these things, faltering and failing and being like, it's okay. I'm human. I love myself. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
This is
Nothing
my
wrong with
moment
you.
to practice. Yeah. So it's been like gradual and I just feel more graceful with myself than I've been in the past. So that's been really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. It really might be that there's nothing wrong with you at all. It really might be. It really might be that there's nothing wrong with them either. And nothing wrong with him either. And nothing wrong with her either. and
And
really
nobody,
like
nobody.
nobody. They're just doing what they're doing to get through life without a owner's manual.
Yeah.
No recipe book, and we're all
No.
just we're fed what we're fed. We see what we see. We've done what we've done. We have what we have. We're looking for whatever we're looking for. And we proceed in life in that direction. Even, by the way, I know for most people, it's like, yeah, well, what about Hitler? Or what about, and they need someone present.
Yeah, someone dark and evil. My
Yeah, it's
ex-boyfriend, that
like,
was
look,
abusive.
that if you really look at the history of Stalin or Hitler and you look at their childhood, what you see is a guy who's doing the very best he can given
Yeah.
the tools that he had.
I truly believe that. I look at evil people, and I was always really interested in Netflix series of murderers. And it fascinates me because I see human in them. Like you hear the
Yeah,
story, everyone's like, oh, this person's terrible, he's evil. And then you hear his story, and the cousin's like, he was raped by his uncle his whole life, and he actually took the brunt of it because he didn't want me to have that. And then
exactly.
you're shocked. And then the person that's evil doesn't even say that. You hear it from someone else, and you just realize like people are just so wounded beyond what we even know,
Yeah,
what's even written, spoken. Some
yeah,
people go through things they don't even know until they have a psychedelic experience, and they're like,
yeah,
at 8 years old I was raped. I
yeah,
had no idea. They were living their whole life completely dysfunctional, wondering what the is wrong with them,
yeah,
but they just didn't know what happened to them.
yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, and I can see this transforming my life and helping me, but also I just really want to use this to transform others' lives, and to just keep teaching people how to just soften and play, and life isn't so complex like we've technologically made it. Like it's so much simpler, and we're so much happier being simple, you
That's right.
know?
True.
Yeah.
Very true. Very real.
Yeah. Thank you for
Uh,
today. I
all
feel
right.
really
You're
good.
welcome. I'm glad this worked out for you today. Thanks for coming here. And then for anybody else who's watching afterwards, first of all, thank you so much for being on lesson 3 because that suggests to me that you probably have looked at 1 and 2 and decided to go on. But if this is your first lesson, this is just a little taste, and you got a little bit of reflection, a little bit of review of some of the things that we did in the first couple weeks. And we have built on it to show what what Undoctor Reset is about, what the Moss method is about, what Welcome to Humanity is about, what pausing is about, and where we can get some of these, growth factors that far exceed any of the power that I've ever seen applied inside of the conventional psychiatric system. So we invite you to take a look at how to get sovereignty and how to, the sovereignty statement is important. Feel free to copy that and maybe even use that each and every day because really in the end, nobody is responsible for anything you say or do except you. You have one diagnosis, by the way. You have one diagnosis and only one. So even if there's nothing wrong with you, you do have one. So your diagnosis is Vanessa, and my
Master.
diagnosis is Fred Moss. And what does that mean? Well, I've had the unique ride consistent with being Fred Moss. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all I have.
Yeah. It's funny how silly and how wonderful our life can be if we just look at it from that perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
You're
Cool.
very welcome. It's great to see you today. Thanks for coming
Yeah.
in. We'll see you next week. And
You know, it's like-
feel free to pass this on to your buds and let's get them in as well.
I will. Thank you so much.
All
Looking
right.
forward to it. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye.